Hey everybody, welcome to Difference Makers. My name is Pastor Tyler Warner, and today we're going to talk about it's important to plan, but sometimes you've just got to figure it out along the way, to learn as you go. But before we get to that, I want to remind you about ironworks.media. Calvary Chapel Trussville is building the premier Christian resource network, including these videos from BGTV Studios. Don't forget to like and subscribe to their channel as well. But over on that website, we've got the books. The newest one, The Desolation of Israel, is already out now. You can find that out right away. You can also find out about our new conferences that we've done. We did a whole new conference this year. All the media is available for you to find right away. It goes in line with the book. It was called our Israel Conference. I'd be strongly encouraging you to check that out. We've also got podcasts, videos, lots of other things going on, verse-by-verse Bible teaching. And if you want to find out more about the church I pastor, you can go to calvarychapeltrussville.com. All right, little bit about me. Little thing about me. I love to play board games. And when you say that, people kind of look at you funny because they're thinking of like Monopoly or Trouble or Sorry. And yeah, those are fun too. But I'm talking about there is a whole new world, if you don't know about, in the last several years of like these really cool, crunchy board games that take like hours to get through some of them. And they're very much aimed at adults, not meaning inappropriate, but they're complicated and they're a lot of fun and they got cool production value. Games like, if you know what I'm talking about, games like Terraforming Mars, games like Scythe, Ark Nova, Wingspan, stuff like that. We got into it, my family, and now there's every square space of our house is shoved in with these board games. And it's a lot of fun. But when you get something like this, when you open up a game and on the side of it, it says the average time to play can be 2 to 3 hours. You know that you're in for a lot of rules. You know you're going to take that thing out, and it's not going to be that little one-pager that you used to get when you were a kid and you could staple to the inside of the box. It's like a little mini book of like 40 pages sometimes, of full-color art and stuff of how to play this game. And it's very difficult to do that. So very often I'm the one teaching, so when I have friends over, I've got to be the one to figure out how to play this thing, instruct everybody, and then go from there. And if you've ever played any level of board game, you probably are familiar with this phrase, let's just play and figure it out as we go. If you're familiar with that, well, I have learned that there is a place to learn the rules and instruct the rules very clearly. There's also a place that sometimes you just got to pick it up and go. I'll say often, this will make sense as we play. And to leave the illustration behind here, that is very much true in life as well. You know I'm a big advocate of planning. On this podcast, we're always talking about how most effectively to live the life to which God has called us to live. And that involves planning, setting goals, gaining skills, all the rest of that. But sometimes we can be stuck preparing endlessly because we're trying to figure out what to do when it would be much better just to start and figure it out along the way. I've done this many times in my life. I've had to learn how to do lots of things along the way. You know, I was a assistant pastor in Virginia for 8 years before I came down and planted the church in Alabama 7 years ago. It's amazing to me to think that I've almost been here longer than I was on staff at that church there. But in any case, I came down and I had some training. I had a master's of divinity. I'd been there for several years and done lots of different things, done missions, done pastoral counseling, all the rest. But it is a whole different thing to come and plant a church. It is a whole different experience to come and start from nothing other than a few people that are curious and have a few friends that invited them, and me with a friend of a friend who I invited to come to the hotel and have church there. That was a whole different experience. And I'd read plenty of books. I'd read lots of things on how to get your mission and vision statement together and how to target your key demographics. I'm not a big fan of demographic ministry, just so you know, but I've done all the reading and all the studying, and I took classes on it, and we had to write, preparation kind of business ministry plans on how to plant churches in some of my classes, and I'm sure that was helpful, but a lot of these things you just got to learn through hard knocks, man. Administration. You can read all the books you want about administration and how to run a church elder meeting, but then you actually get into a board meeting with some people, and it's not like that at all. You've got maybe some principles that you want to stand by, but learning how to handle those conversations, how to come to a compromise, how to soothe the doubts of somebody else, what kind of financial information you need to bring. There's lots of things that you just don't know until you get there. Missions has been like that. We want to do world missions. Okay, where do we go? The world's a big place. So we've had to kind of figure out, all right, why don't we make some phone calls and then see who's out there and who will let us come, and then Pastor Tyler will go and maybe bring some people with him and just try it for a while and see how that goes. That's been missions, learning how to handle people. I like to think that I'm in a pretty good place with that now, but early on, even though I knew it was coming. When people came in and they wanted to try to strong arm the ministry to go their way or try to get on my good side and flatter me into doing all the things that they wanted, I could see it coming, but I had a hard time identifying it in the moment and knowing what to do. I had to learn that on the fly. It's all been hard knocks. And in particular, our local outreaches have been in that category. We wanted to do prison ministry, for example. I did not know anybody in prison ministry. I didn't know anybody in this state that could help me out with that. So what I started doing was calling people outside of the state and said, do you know anybody who does prison ministry in Alabama? And then I find one guy that says, call this guy here. And I had lunch with him. He said, I can't help you. I don't know what to do, but maybe you could call this guy. And then that ministry shut down. And then I call him. And he said, why don't you come into the prison one day and visit with us? And so I did. And eventually I started joining that class. And over time, and I mean now over years, we've got to a place where we have a fairly regular, fairly robust prison ministry. And even so, I still feel like I'm figuring it out. All of our outreaches have been that way. I talked about ironworks.media at the beginning. That's the kind of thing where if you go to it, you might look at it and say, this is nothing like the premier Christian resource network. Well, no, not yet. That is very much an active figuring it out as we go process. We want to have a media platform. I don't know how to do that. I know how to preach. I know how to write a little bit. Let's go from there. Even publishing our books. As great as this one looks now, this is the fourth one we've done. And we've had to learn along the way how to do that. We're not there yet as a ministry, but we are learning, and God has blessed us. So what I'm saying is, I know what I'm talking about. I know how it is to start and be bad at it and then learn as you go. The alternative to this, of course, is to plan. And I'm a big fan of planning. We do a lot of planning in my life, and not just at church, but at home and in everything else. But there's something, to go back to the world of board games, there's something that we call analysis paralysis. This is when you are about to take a turn, and there's somebody, everybody else takes a minute or two to do their thing, and then it comes around to them, and they're sitting there staring at the board like this. Like, hey man, it's your turn. I know, just give me a minute. And then it's like 9 or 10 minutes every time it gets to them because they're trying to play out every scenario in their head of all the possible moves they could make and then go for it and figure out which one to do. And it's frustrating to play with somebody like that. I tell my children when we play board games, I'll say, son, when it comes to be your turn, you need to already know what you're going to do. Yes, Daddy. We have to do that. And, well, that can happen in life too, where you spend so much time planning that you are paralyzed because you have to analyze every single little detail of something. And making the long list of everything that you need to do and everything you've got to learn, all the skills you've got to have, that can be helpful, but it can also be a deterrent to actually going. For example, to use my own life again, I know lots of guys that are attending school, or at the time I left, they were still attending school, still going on and getting another church degree, not really serving in ministry at all, but it's kind of getting all their reading done, all their planning, all their thought. And when I get ready to go plant a church, they have so many opinions on what I should do because they are very familiar with the requirements, and yet they had no actual experience. And some of them to this day have not done anything other than read books about it. And that's not anywhere that we want to be. Whether it's the education that you need. In some places, you need education. You got to get a degree if you want to be a doctor. You need experience. You ever try to apply for a job that you feel like is an entry-level job, but they want you to have like 5 years of experience already? Sometimes it's age. Well, you really shouldn't try this. I heard that a ton. I don't think anybody who's younger than 40 should be planning a church. Well, so much for that. I'm still not even close to that at this point. The kind of expertise you have, the amount of money that you need to start a business or to run something, or the people that you need around you. If you try to read every book on how to do anything, whether that's creativity or sports or business or whatever, the list of things that you should be doing can be so long. How are you ever supposed to get started? Analysis paralysis requires a perfect plan, but it simply just takes too long. There has to come a point where you just go. And today I am urging you and explaining to you about how it is good to go and just figure it out along the way. The reason for that is once you begin something, it's much easier to keep it going than to actually get started. Maybe you remember this when you were in school. Actually sitting down and writing the first paragraph of that paper was way harder than finishing the thing. Actually sitting down to do it. Every writer knows this. Every musician knows this. Actually sitting down to play or to write or to paint, I would imagine, is harder. Getting in the gym is harder than actually exercising once you're there. I had a rule for myself that when I was doing triathlons, and maybe I'll do them again someday, but swimming was always a big hassle, practicing the swim, because you got to go there, you got to get dressed, you got to get in the water, sometimes you got to wait for a lane, and all the rest of that. My goal every day, I would not put on my list, swim, according to today's routine, it would be get in the water. Because I knew once I was in the water, I'm going to do it. and I would be fine once I got there. That's the magic of beginning. And once you start doing something, you learn in real time what you actually need. Books are helpful. I have way too many books. I'm recording a podcast to help you with this. I hope that this is helpful. But your life is going to be a little different from everybody else's. What you're trying to do is going to be different than somebody else. And I have found that when you get actually in it, you may realize that the book was wrong, or it was incomplete, or maybe that would have worked in a different situation, but not in yours. Or even you find a workaround where you don't need to do that anymore. You're going to find out what you actually need. As opposed to making a long list of all the things that you must do, once you get started, you're going to learn very quickly which of these things on this list actually matter. We've got things I remember from our first to-do list that we had as a church that I look at that list and laugh now because we still haven't done some of them because we found out we didn't need them. They seemed very important at the time, but they're just entirely unnecessary to the ministry that we were trying to do. And I find that a lot of my plans are like that because I've learned to start before you're ready and just go. Most things are pretty easy once you get going. My assistant pastor, Zach, he loves to say this: you can just do things. People come in and they're like, I don't know if I want to get married. I don't know if I should start a business. I don't know if I should try this. And he goes, you can just do things. You read articles about how this is an age where no one can afford a house and no one can start a business and no one can do this. And he'll just get exasperated and go, you can just do things. Nobody's stopping you. Just go for it. And that's true. You'll make quick progress. You'll learn to accommodate where you're falling short. That, maybe this guy said you need to be a financial expert to do this, but maybe you come in and you realize I can learn the bare minimum and delegate the rest to everybody else. And then I didn't need to do that 2-year accounting degree that he said I was going to need. But you also learn what you don't know. And that's important. You don't know what you don't know. This is something we say in our administrative meetings a lot as a church, as in, let's go find out because we don't know what we don't know. Let's call such and such because we don't know what we don't know. I told somebody recently that was talking about dealing with the city, and I said, don't just take somebody's word for it. Go talk to somebody who knows how to do this and has done this before, somebody who's actually in it, who's got that experience. Well, if you start, you're going to start gaining that experience for yourself right away. And in addition to that, there are so many things that just can't be learned until you're in it. I see this a lot with basketball players who have been particularly resistant to the introduction of analytics into their sport. Because what they say is, of course, it's more points to get a 3-point shot, but in a basketball game, it's much better and easier to get these 2-point shots than it is to be rotating around the perimeter the whole time. Or they'll say, I know you don't think he's that great, but I've actually been on the floor with that guy. I've actually had to play against him. I know that he's better than that. That's why it's really interesting to me to see in a domain, who do the participants prefer as opposed to the general public? Who do the writers think is a good writer? Who do actors think is a good director? Who do basketball players, baseball players think is a good coach? Because sometimes it's different from what we think. And there's certain things you just can't learn until you are in it. So my advice to you is get after it as soon as you can. Get into it right away and learn along the way. Because once you get started, you make some quick progress, and you start seeing where you need to work, now you can start working on things to prepare yourself that are actually going to bear fruit right away. When you've identified the big problems, the big needs, things like, okay, I really don't know how to bookkeep, and I can't afford a bookkeeper yet. I need to learn how to handle finances in my new business. Or you get married and you say, all right, I really don't have good conflict resolution skills, and I'm learning, but maybe there's somebody who can help me with this. What you do then is as you go along and you start learning what I need to figure out and who I need to hire and what skills I need to develop, now you've got a plan different from the one you had at the beginning that is actually catered to your situation. And it can be adjusted for what you need day by day. I found in many cases that sometimes the books you read that are supposed to help you or the classes that you take or the podcasts you listen to, they're helpful, but they're meant maybe for a different level than you. Finance books are crazy like this. I'll read a book about money, and I'm like, this book was clearly written for somebody who already has the amount of money that I'm trying to get. They're talking about, investing this much thousands of dollars into something, like, and if you can't, then what are you even doing? I'm like, well, clearly this wasn't intended for me. And so that can be the case in lots of instances. Trying to pick up a book on how to draw. The famous meme is like how to draw a horse. Draw basic shapes, fill it in, now draw the rest of the horse. Like that's sometimes what it feels like because maybe you're just not there yet. And sometimes you will find that I might not have all these skills, but just diligently persisting is enough to work around them. You've got to find out, and you're not going to know until you actually go for it. Getting some training, finding some help is much easier when you are in motion. I have found that when I first moved down here to plant the church, and I would call pastors and say, hey, could we meet together? I want to ask you some questions about this and that. I usually got put off But when I call now and I say, hey, I'm Pastor Tyler from Calvary Chapel, Trussville. I'd like to call and talk to you about prison ministry, whatever it is. Now people are more likely to take my calls. Why? Because I'm a little more established. I've been here a little bit longer. Maybe they've heard the name of the church. And so if I need to find somebody to help me with something, it's easier to do that. I was never going to get those connections, though, until I started. People are more willing to help when you're in the game. And you'll also understand the advice better. A lot of comedians have podcasts now, and I think it's fascinating to watch them talk about the craft of stand-up comedy, which I've never done other than watching it, But to hear them talk and how they instantly understand each other when they're giving advice to one another and have their own little language. Every domain is like that. Whatever business you want to get into is going to be like that. Churches are like that. Denominations are like that. YouTube communities, online groups, they have their own language that they use. Marriage has its own vernacular that you're going to have to develop, whatever it may be. And you're not going to know that until you're out there. One of the best things for me as a young preacher in learning to be a man of God and actually lead a ministry was being around other preachers. When I would go to these pastors' conferences, even if I wasn't a pastor yet, being there, being around these guys, hearing how they talk was important. So you got to get into the game because nobody wants a dilettante. Nobody wants a maybe to hang around with their clipboard asking a bunch of weird questions. Get in the game. And also, you should never underestimate the fact you are going to gain your own insights through this process that might be able to help somebody else. You maybe have been relying on a book that you read sometime, but as you go along, maybe you can start to evaluate that advice and say, I don't know if that's right anymore. Maybe it was right at one time, but I think history has moved on, or technology has changed, or the trends are different, or I don't think I want to do it that way. And you'll develop your own little insights, and then what happens is people come along behind you, you share one of those things with them, and it's life-changing for them. So you shouldn't sell yourself short, that you don't have anything to contribute, but you're not going to know what it is until you get out there. So get started. Don't wait. Get out there and go for what you know you ought to do. But I should warn you right now, this means that at first, you are not going to be good at this. You are not going to be good at what you start doing as you try to learn along the way. If you try to get out there and golf, you're not going to be good at it the first day. You're not going to get any better, but you're not going to be good at it right away. This is something that I tell my son about a lot. I have 3 sons, and my oldest one, if he thinks he can win, he will pay full attention to what's going on. But if he, again, back to board games, if we're playing a game and he realizes he's starting to lose, he gets goofy, he stops paying attention, he kind of drifts off. And sometimes he doesn't want to try new things because he doesn't think he's going to be good at it right away. Very excited to try football, but then after the first week or so, he realized I'm maybe not as good at this as I thought, and he started to lose a little bit of interest. But I told him, Micah, you've got to be bad at something before you can be good at something. And it shouldn't frighten you. It shouldn't frighten you that you're going to get out there and try to start a business, and you're going to do things that are going to make everybody laugh at you, or you're going to be ignored by the city, or you're going to have people pass you over when they shouldn't. Or in marriage, you're going to do things that you're going to look back on and go, oh, that was such a bad idea. Don't let that intimidate you. That's the process. That is actually what it takes. And if you want to know what I mean by this, go find a very popular YouTube channel. Go find somebody that's been on for a long time and has maybe millions of subscribers. Go back and look at their first videos. Sort their videos by oldest, and you're going to crack up. It's usually some kid, with a eggshell white wall behind him and the camera's crooked and they're just kind of talking like this. And you know what happens? They got better. They started before they were good at it. They made all that stuff that kind of is embarrassing for us all now, and yet they were able to grow something big. I'm sure if you were to watch the first time a great athlete tried their sport, they didn't start that great. I've heard it said about Tiger Woods, he was amazing by the time he was just a little kid. Yes, but he also started as a little kid. He started that young. So it doesn't matter how old you are. The first time you hold a golf club, you're not going to swing it right. But if you get started and get those bad years out of the way early, then you can excel quickly. We say in preaching, you need to preach 10,000 terrible sermons before you preach a good one. And I think that number is inflated, but I hope you can get the point there. You've got to do badly before you do good. And so I tell our guys at church, you might as well get your bad ones out of the way now so that you can start doing some good ones later. And I know there's some churches and some pastors, unfortunately, they won't let somebody preach if they don't think he's going to do a good job. To which I say, where else is he supposed to learn how to do this? He's got to try. He's got to do it badly so he can do well. It doesn't mean that he's going to preach heresy. It doesn't mean that he's going to do something that's horrible. It means that he might make too many jokes and be kind of cringeworthy, or lose his spot in his notes, or get the scripture reference wrong, or end it awkwardly. You got to do that. It's going to happen. I've done all those things. I don't do them as much anymore, thank God, but I'm glad that I had the opportunity to do them young so that now I can feel like I'm past a lot of those things. You got to have a sense of humor about yourself. You got to trust that this is the process. I tell married couples this all the time. They always come in. And it doesn't matter if they got married when they were 45 or 25 or 20. Within those first couple years, there are a couple standard fights that everyone is going to have. He doesn't listen to me. She's not catering to my needs. Round and round it goes. And they come in and they all think that these early fights are a sign that maybe we shouldn't be together. Maybe we made a mistake getting married. And most of them are reassured when I tell them, guys, everybody does this. Everybody does this. I told some people not long ago, they said, we just have these moments where like maybe we shouldn't be together. Maybe we should break up. I don't know if I want to be with them anymore. And I feel terrible about that. I said, how long have you been married? And they said, about 4 years. I said, well, that's about right. Everybody has that about that time. And they said, really? I was like, yes, that's the process. Push through it and go to the other side. And they were so relieved to know, first of all, we're not horrible people. But secondly, we're going to get through this. And the same thing is true for you and for me. You today are worse than you will ever be at this thing that you're trying. So get past the bad years quickly and get to the good stuff. You got to start before you're ready and learn as you go. So let me give you some examples here. I love to go through all these different aspects of your life. I don't know if I'm going to hit them all today, but let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about, going before you're ready and learning as you go. In your spiritual life, you need to start your spiritual disciplines right away. That means prayer, reading your Bible, attending church, serving at church, fellowshipping with other believers, evangelizing. There's long lists of these different things. But I know people that say, I read my Bible and I don't get anything out of it. To which I say, you're probably not very good at reading your Bible then. You've got to grow. Like I tell people, that book has overturned empires. If it's boring to you, you're the problem. But that means you've got to learn how to slow down and go through a method of how to study the Bible and observation, interpretation, application. Go through that. If you say, I try to pray and I can't pray longer than 5 minutes, I say, good, you got to learn. You got to learn how to pray. You got to learn how to serve at church. You got to learn how to evangelize. These are skills just as they are things that we do spiritually. So you got to start. Don't wait until you're good at it. You're not going to get good at it until you start. Physically, get in the gym and move. Learn the ropes later. Learn what all the machines are called later. I still get awkward when I go into the gym. And I've been going to the gym for a long time now. I actually surprised myself how long I've been going into the gym to work out, even though I still feel like a new guy. And I guess I kind of am compared to some people. But you just got to go in there. Walk on the treadmill if you need to. Pick up some dumbbells and carry them around. If you've seen something done on TV, do that. Pull up a YouTube video and watch them do it and go along with it. You've got to get started. If all you know how to do is walk around the neighborhood, do that. It's better than nothing. And then you do it a little more often, and maybe you think, I think it'd go a little faster. And then you think, man, my legs are starting to hurt. So you Google it, and they say, well, what you need to do is you need to do some squats. I don't know how to do squats. Well, I can squat with nothing. And you grow. You get better as you go. Don't think that you're going to be perfect the first time. You just won't be. Personally, I'm always encouraging people, take risks in your relationships. Go on a date. Ask her out. Everyone's like, oh, how do you do that? I get guys at church, how do you ask a girl out? And I often don't have much help there because what I say is you walk up to her and you say, hi, my name is so-and-so. I think you're really cute. I'd love to take you out sometime. Oh, you just say that? Yeah, I do. That's what I did. But before I got married, and because I was successful at it. But I mean, even if you've been dating for a long time, get married. What are you waiting for? If you know everything there is to know about that person, get married. Have a child. What are you waiting for? I don't know if we're mature enough yet. You ain't gonna be mature enough until you get there. Financially, start saving. Go get a job and increase your income. Start investing. It's only going to get better from there. There's so many people that stress about doing the right thing, finding the right financial system, that they do nothing. And that's not good at all. Start doing something, at least putting a little bit away, and worry about the percentages and all that later on. It's not as important as actually doing it. If you're looking at your creative life, I want to learn how to draw. I want to learn how to write. I want to learn how to play guitar. Buy a guitar and start practicing. Start drawing anything. Well, I don't know the techniques. Worry about the techniques later. Just get started. Just learn how to sing. Just try what you're doing. Learn to build some skill until you know what you need to learn. I tell guys this in guitar all the time. They're always saying, what kind of amp should I buy? I say, what kind of sound are you going for? They say, I don't know. Then I say, play with the one you've got until you know what you want. You got to start. Education, right? Education obviously requires ignorance to begin. If you know it, you shouldn't be studying it. So start learning now. You want to learn history? Buy a history book. I remember doing this when I was at Barnes & Noble one time. There was a book on an end cap. It said Jefferson and Hamilton. And I thought, that's a cool looking book. I don't know much about Alexander Hamilton, and I like American history. I bought it and I read it. That was really actually pretty good. I went back to the bookstore, and on that same end cap, there was another one about the Dust Bowl. I'm like, I don't really know anything about the Dust Bowl. And I read that, and that got me on this move. Like, now I read American history all the time, and I find myself to be pretty knowledgeable about it. Every hobby has a threshold that you've got to get over. So get after that professionally. Don't get intimidated, but go for it and learn how to do it along the way. Even if the business fails, man, what you'll have learned through that process will be invaluable to it. Friends, America was built by people who said, we're just going to go and figure it out along the way. We're going to go to Plymouth Rock and live there. What's that going to look like? I don't know. We're going to figure that out as we go. We're going to move west and survive. That's kind of in our character as Americans. That's how the church was begun. It seemed good to the Holy Spirit and to us, they said. Every successful endeavor involves somebody who is willing to step out and go. The well-planned things almost always get left behind by people who don't know what they don't know and just go for it without knowing all the rules. Stop waiting, stop planning, stop judging, and just go. I want you to start right away, and you're going to be so excited. Don't worry about when you're doing badly, because you're always going to feel like you're doing badly, even when you're not. And then one day, you're going to find yourself in the position I find myself, where I have people calling me and saying, you seem to know a lot about this. Can you teach me? And sometimes that's the first indication you get that you've actually learned anything at all. Don't wait. Learn as you go. This has been Difference Makers. My name is Pastor Tyler Warner from Calvary Chapel in Trussville, Alabama. I want to remind you about our latest effort that we are figuring out as we go, ironworks.media. We're trying to build a premier Christian resource network for the church. We've got podcasts, we've got books, we've got a mailing list you can join and get 2 free ebooks right away, and that'll let you know about all the new things coming up, including our book launch coming out this November 2025. And if you want to find out more about that church I was talking about earlier, you can go to calvarychapeltrussville.com. Learn as you go, my friend. Go make a difference.